Today's episode begins where Emily went about a year ago, but she has returned with some of her close friends. This is the Vanadu Art House. This is located in Hyattsville, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. This wild house and 4 vehicles were created by former museum conservator Clark Bedford. 4 vehicles, can you believe it? He decorated his house and vehicles with random objects and recycled metal. The vehicles are all drivable, too. Bedford has so much stuff in his front yard, too. Bedford wanted to add some unique flair to what he described as his boring neighborhood. I think he succeeded, don't you? This is an amazing stop, and it's not far from the popular Washington, D.C. attractions. Sometimes Clark Bedford will let visitors look inside the home. Okay, let's head to another place with Emily's friends. Now back in Takoma Park, not far from the Vanadu house, and it's this former payphone where you can listen to bird calls. Absolutely true. Dial any number and listen to a bird. The only problem is the birds chirping nearby, so it's hard to figure out if the bird noise is from outside or the phone.
They drum on tree trunks to communicate.
Sadly, Emily has to say goodbye to her friends and leave the DC area. She's heading north from here.
Hey guys, Emily, welcome everyone! In addition to Maryland, I'll be traveling through the states of Delaware and New Jersey. And tonight, I'll end up in New York City. There's a lot to see between the DC area and the Big Apple. So it's going to be another long day of driving, as I hope to make it to New York City by 9 p.m. So, let's go!
Emily's heading north, and she just got on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway heading to the Baltimore area. She's also in rush hour traffic, so there's stop-and-go traffic everywhere. Right now it's mostly stop and crawl traffic. Now we're in much better shape, since we're north of the Capital Beltway, or Interstate 495. Still lots of traffic, but it's moving at around the 65-mile-per-hour speed limit. Emily's next stop is not far away, in the city of Columbia, Maryland. We're making this stop very quickly since it's in someone's yard, but this is the wizard tree. This 8-foot-tall carving was sculpted by Evelyn Mogren in 2014 using a tree stump. It bears a resemblance to Gandalf, with an owl standing on his left shoulder and a fox next to his right foot. The owner won a ruling against his homeowners association to keep this sculpture up. We had to take this video from the car, hope it came out okay. Now driving around Baltimore's Loop Highway, Interstate 695, and about to take the off-ramp to the Northwest Expressway, or Interstate 795. Emily will travel the length of 795 to reach her next destination. The clouds have parted, and Emily's now in a more rural part of Maryland. Some may say this little town is rustic, or maybe bucolic. But if you were to say this place is boring, you'd be correct. Take a look at this post office, which opened in 1880. The community of Boring was named for Postmaster David Boring, since the original name of Fairview was taken. Take a look at that Boring Volunteer Fire Department across from the railroad tracks. Actually, fire service is now handled by a nearby firehouse, and this building was formerly used as a bingo hall. This Boring community has about 200 residents, but now 2 of the residents who bought this old fire station want to use it for a construction business. A little bit of strife in this small town. There was once a train depot in this general area, but we don't see any evidence of a station being here. It might have been the post office doubling as the station. That probably would make sense. There was a boring Methodist church, but that building has been sold, and the congregation holds its services elsewhere. This is a nice little town. It seems like a quaint rural town with rolling hills and friendly people. It's also not too far away from Baltimore, and close to suburbs that have lots of amenities. Speaking of those suburbs, Emily is in the city of Towson, Maryland, at Prospect Hill Cemetery. There's my car over there, and note where the buildings are, so if you're interested in seeing this person's grave marker. There are a number of grave markers with the name Milstead on them, and Emily's here to see this one from Harris Glenn Milstead, more commonly known as Devine. Devine was very much a part of the 1960s Cultural Revolution. Milstead grew up in the Baltimore suburbs in a conservative middle-class household. He became interested in drag while working as a women's hairdresser. In the mid-1960s, he met indie filmmaker John Waters, who gave Milstead the stage name Devine. Devine had always played a female role in Waters' films, and he started to be noticed more and more in the press. It's not often you see a sign telling people it's against the law to deface a grave marker. Devine's grave marker has been defaced many times, sometimes with spray paint or fingernail polish, and other times, people have written profanity on the grave marker. Devine is buried near many members of his family. He had an infamous and disgusting scene in the movie Pink Flamingos, but he received widespread acclaim for his performances in the film Hairspray, which some consider Devine's breakout into mainstream films. 3 weeks after Hairspray was released, Devine traveled to Los Angeles since he was scheduled for a guest appearance on the TV show Married with Children. After rehearsals and dinner, Devine returned to his hotel room, and he died just before midnight. Hundreds were at Devine's funeral service at this cemetery. John Waters was a pallbearer and gave a eulogy. Back on the road, and still heading north, and if you look beyond the red light, you'll see the sign welcoming us to Delaware. This is quite a segue from the Devine grave marker, but we're in the city of Newcastle, and all that traffic noise is coming from Interstate 295. Emily's at the Holy Spirit Catholic Church. We told you this was a crazy segue. Anyway, next to the church is a huge stainless steel sculpture of the Virgin Mary. It's almost as tall as the church. This is officially called the Our Lady Queen of Peace Shrine. She stands 34 feet tall, easily visible to all those traveling south from the bridge leading out of New Jersey. A local sculptor, Charles C. Parks, created a Mary statue for a church in Santa Clara, California, in 1982. The Delaware Catholic community really liked the sculpture. Parks created another sculpture for a Chicago church in 1999, which gave hope to Delaware Catholics that Parks could make a third statue for them. So they created a campaign that raised over $500,000 for the sculptor to create a Mary statue for Delaware. A large donor asked for Mary to have the face of Our Lady of Medjugorje, who made many appearances in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This statue was dedicated by Bishop Michael Saltarelli in 2007. Next to the statue are the Stations of the Cross, chronicling the sentencing through death of Jesus Christ. One interesting fact, the statue is wearing a heart encircled with thorns. For those who contribute $100 to the maintenance fund for this statue, their name is placed inside the heart. Isn't that kinda weird? Like, who's gonna go inside that heart medallion and look inside it to see who contributed to its maintenance? Emily just thought that was really strange, but I guess it brings in the $100 bills, right? Here's the marker noting when the statue was dedicated. The church is a little difficult to get to, but you can easily see it heading south on I-295. Alright, time to return to downtown Newcastle. Emily's been to Newcastle before, but she missed a lot, so she wanted to make sure to see them this time. Like this very old cemetery next to Newcastle United Methodist Church. This is still an active cemetery with recent burials. But some markers go back to the early 19th century. Newcastle has a very rich history dating back to the late 1600s. This is the Newcastle Courthouse and Museum. This was built in 1732 and was Delaware's first courthouse. It later became Delaware's state capital. This was where the people in Delaware voted to be an independent state in 1776. But it wasn't just independence from Great Britain. The citizens of Delaware also voted to be their own state, as they were once part of the province of Pennsylvania. This marker mentions George Read, from Newcastle, who signed the Declaration of Independence, and also created a framework to create the United States Senate, ensuring all states are equal. All that history, right there in that building, almost 250 years ago. This is a beautiful town, with all these brick buildings. Newcastle was founded in 1651 by Dutch settlers. Newcastle was Delaware's state capital in 1776 and 1777, when the capital was moved to Dover. Emily just took a quick glance at this pier last time. This pier was rebuilt in 2017, 5 years after the previous pier was destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. Ferry service operated between here and Pennsville, New Jersey, starting in 1925. Up to 8 ferries carried people, goods, and automobiles across the Delaware River. This was an economic boon for both Newcastle and Pennsville, which you can see on the other side of the Delaware River. However, ferry service ended in 1951 because of that bridge in the distance. That's the Delaware Memorial Bridge, which opened in 1951. Once that bridge was built, there was no need for ferry service. Although now with the new dock in place, people have been asking if ferry service could be resumed. That's probably not likely to happen. For starters, there's no pier in Pennsville. Right about where those modern piers are today is where William Penn arrived in Newcastle on October 27, 1682. Basically, he was given the proverbial key to the settlement when he arrived, since he was the owner of the land, as granted by King Charles II. The date means William Penn arrived here first, then sailed up the Delaware River, and 2 days later, he arrived in Philadelphia, where he created a peaceful and prosperous society, which he called the City of Brotherly Love. Now Emily's back near the downtown square, and in the median of this thoroughfare is this statue of William Penn. Penn was instrumental in creating several colonial provinces in what is now the Mid-Atlantic area by acquiring land using funds from King Charles II. Those funds were meant to repay debt owed to Penn's father. Penn was an early proponent of forming a union of those colonies into what would eventually be the United States. This marker over here notes that the land Emily's standing on was part of a 1,000-acre tract granted to Penn in 1701 for the settlers of the town of Newcastle, and Penn's successors still hold and manage the land. Even though William Penn died in 1718, his core principles of religious freedom and a just society heavily influenced the Constitution ratified nearly 70 years later. He was also an influence on other democracies around the world. It's amazing that a man who died over 3 centuries ago has had an enormous influence on what much of the world has become. This marker on this stack of stones says they are from the Newcastle and Frenchtown Railroad, the first railroad in Delaware, which was completed in 1831. At the time Emily visited, the trees had these beautiful pink flowers on them, adding to the beauty of Newcastle. Stopping by Packet Alley one more time. Emily was here a few months ago, where so many prominent world leaders disembarked and walked along this very alley through Newcastle and on to Washington, D.C. Let's see these names again: Andrew Jackson, Davy Crockett, Sam Houston, Louis Napoleon, Henry Clay, Stonewall Jackson, and more. That's a who's who of historical figures. And all of those people disembarked from a boat that crossed the Delaware River and walked on this alley. Incredible. Continuing north on I-95, and of course the truck blocks the Welcome to Pennsylvania sign. And Emily got more bad luck. The reason she went to Philly was closed.
I wanted to go to John's Roast Pork since it was highly recommended. However, I didn't realize they were closed on Monday. That kinda sucked. The Philly captain says that John's Roast Pork has the best cheesesteak ever. I also had 2 roadside attractions on the list, but I was starting to lose time, so I decided to head for New Jersey.
But there's a little bit of good news. Emily found probably the only bridge going into New Jersey that didn't have a giant toll attached to it. But that money saved will go right into toll baskets on the Atlantic City Expressway and the Garden State Parkway this afternoon. Emily's heading east on I-76, and she's gradually heading toward Atlantic City to see a few roadside attractions. The first of those attractions is at Little's Day & Bar at Egg Harbor Township, about a half hour from Atlantic City. Emily heard this is a really good place for gelato and other sweet treats, but she's here to see this giant raisin holding an ice cream cone. This statue was formerly based on the California Raisin cartoon character seen in TV commercials in the 1980s. It was located near a mini golf course, and when the golf course shut down, the owner of this dessert place purchased it. This big guy is 20 feet tall, and got a makeover about 3 years ago, with a fresh coat of paint and a new baseball cap. The raisin also enjoys the ice cream sold at Little's Dairy Bar, which has been serving tasty treats since 1973. They serve milkshakes, slushies, smoothies, frozen yogurt, sundaes, banana splits, root beer floats, and water ice. Alright, let's move on. Now at Margate City, located along the Jersey Shore, and you see it's gotten pretty foggy, and also kinda chilly, Emily had to put a jacket on. Emily kept getting a suggestion on Instagram for something called Lucy the Elephant, so she decided to go visit it. Lucy has a pretty interesting story to tell. Lucy the Elephant is considered the very first roadside attraction in the U.S. It was constructed in Philadelphia for the U.S. Centennial Celebration in 1876. Anthony Gertson purchased it after the celebration ended and moved it to Margate City. Later, his son John owned the elephant, and he used it as a nightclub to go with the casino hotel he owned next door. His wife Sophia gave the elephant the name Lucy. In 1902, they leased the elephant out as a summer home, with 4 bedrooms, a dining room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. Just beyond the sand is the beach, but there's not much of a view with all the fog. The boardwalk from Atlantic City doesn't make it this far south. Here's the other Lucy Beach Grill, probably where they have food and drinks. Lucy was briefly a tavern, but drunk people knocked over oil lanterns, nearly burning her to the ground. In 1970, Sophia's children sold the hotel and other businesses to a real estate developer and donated a decaying Lucy to Margate City. The city was about to tear Lucy down, but the Save Lucy committee raised money to restore her. Lucy was moved to her current location. It was almost like a parade procession rolled her down the street. But Lucy needed to be fixed up. She went on the National Register of Historic Places in 1971, and after 3-year-long restoration, Lucy reopened for tours. In 1976, when Lucy was 100 years old and the U.S. was 200 years old, she was designated a National Historic Landmark. Emily wished she could go inside to take a look, but they were not conducting tours today. But this was a pretty cool stop, seeing one of the classic giant roadside attractions in the U.S., Lucy the Elephant. Just north along the Jersey Shore is Atlantic City, home of the Miss America pageant since 1921. As a commemoration, here is this bronze statue of Miss America that wants to place the crown on your head, so you can be Miss America too. The pageant was briefly moved to Las Vegas, but returned in 2014, when this large sculpture of a Miss America was installed near Boardwalk Hall. The statue is about 8 feet tall, so about 1.25 times the life-size version of a Miss America. This statue was sculpted by Brian Hanlon, and he said his inspiration was to make people feel that they too can participate in the Miss America pageant just a little bit. Probably the best-known host of the Miss America pageant was Burt Parks, who hosted from 1955 to 1979. The Miss America pageant left Atlantic City in 2019. Then it moved to Connecticut, then hosted in Orlando since 2024. While Emily was here, she was asked twice for money by panhandlers. It appears that the Atlantic City Boardwalk area is not busy at all. The boardwalk itself, meaning the wooden walkway, is in pretty good shape, but there's hardly anyone here. Also, it smells like urine, and we don't think it's because of dead fish washing ashore. It just smells really gross here. This small strip mall looks okay, but I guess they decided to close up for today. Many years ago, Atlantic City was the second most popular city for gambling in the country, behind Las Vegas. Looks like a couple of stores are open down there. But with more states allowing casino gambling, there's less of a reason to go here. It's not likely Emily will be coming back. At least Emily now knows the places on a Monopoly board come from the Jersey Shore, like Ventnor Avenue and Marvin Gardens. Anyway, let's move on. Now heading north on the Garden State Parkway, another toll road that runs along the eastern side of New Jersey. There are a few more interesting places for Emily to see before she leaves the state. In the city of Holmdel, Emily is at the site of the former Bell Laboratories complex, where they designed the early transistors back in the 1940s. So it makes sense that their water tower is shaped like a transistor. The designers of the transistor all worked at Bell Labs. John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley also won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1947. This water tower was constructed in 1961. Even though Bell Labs is not longer here, the water tower has remained as a symbol of the birthplace of modern electronics. Bell Labs was converted into Bell Works, which is what they call a metroburb, which has office space, retail, dining, and cultural space. So there's still quite a bit of activity here. Quite a bit of history too. In 1932, scientist Carly Jansky discovered radio waves coming from outer space. He created an antenna with an unusual shape to capture the radio waves. This marked the beginning of radio astronomy. That's really amazing that a researcher from Bell Labs actually created a type of science. To commemorate that, in the median of this road is the Jansky Monument. The monument shows what the special antenna looked like. The discovery of radio waves from outer space in the 30s gave birth to the discovery of background radiation from the Big Bang in 1964. Those discoverers were also from Bell Labs, Arno Penzias, and Robert Wilson. Those men also received Nobel Prizes. Soon after, radio astronomers created a unit of measurement for the density of radio flux. The measurement name is called Jansky noise. Carly Jansky also had a crater on the moon named for him. This monument was constructed in 1998, just before Bell Labs closed down. Upon post-research, Emily may have missed a very big find while here. This building was known as Lumen Industries in the Apple TV Plus series Severance. But something bigger may be in there. Apparently, one of the cafeterias might have been the inspiration for the Caltech cafeteria in the Big Bang Theory TV show. Someone from the TV show could have used the cafeteria as an homage to that Big Bang discovery from this campus. Emily will research this some more. If it's true that the cafeteria is still in that building, Emily will most definitely be back, since she's a fan of the Big Bang Theory. Continuing north on the GSP, and Emily stopped at this rest area named for Jon Bon Jovi. If you're in Generation X, you know who this is. This rest area was remodeled in 2024 and honors the rock singer who had a string of hits in the 80s and 90s with his band, Bon Jovi. Songs like You Give Love a Bad Name, I'll Be There For You, and Living on a Prayer are heard on the radio and Spotify even to this day. Here's one of his guitars from his collection. There's a gold record from one of Bon Jovi's most popular albums, Slippery When Wet. The New Jersey toll roads all have rest areas named for an accomplished person from the state. In a recent interview, Jon Bon Jovi said he was honored to have a rest area named for him. Finally, and if you can believe it, Emily made it a little before schedule, about half an hour early. This long bridge with the scary skinny lanes is called the Outer Bridge Crossing, and on the other side of the bridge is New York City, specifically the borough of Staten Island, where Emily will be staying for the next 3 days. This is Emily's first visit to New York in over 11 years. The reason Emily wanted to arrive before 9 p.m. is because of possible storms scheduled to arrive around that time. There's a cold front on the way, which will make the next couple of days kinda chilly.
As it turned out, I did barely make it. I stopped at a Chili's for dinner, and about 5 minutes later, it started pouring rain. And it started lightning too. I'd say I got pretty lucky with the weather. And that's it for my drive. I got to see a lot of cool roadside attractions. I did miss out on a good cheesesteak in Philadelphia, but that's alright. I've got some great episodes from New York City coming up, but you'll see that next time. Thanks for watching, bye!